"Madam, we need a deposit before we can admit your mother." The nurse's voice was firm, not angry, just tired. She had said this 100 times to 100 desperate faces. Chioma stood still, her hands gripping the strap of her old black purse. The air around her smelled like antiseptic and bleach. Behind the curtain, her mother lay on a stretcher, coughing weakly, her breath slow and shallow. Chioma's voice was barely a whisper. "Please, she's all I have." The nurse gave a polite shrug. "Hospital policy, Ma. We need at least 15,000 naira before we can open a file." Chioma opened her purse, folded notes, a torn shopping list, a tiny bottle of balm. 3,200 naira. That was all. She looked down, helpless, her heart pounding. Then came a voice from down the hall, calm, warm, steady. "Chioma Eze?" She turned and froze. It was a doctor, young, female, confident. Her coat was white, her voice gentle, but her face, that face, it was Adobe, her student, Enugu, 8 years ago. Chioma was 29 then, a secondary school teacher teaching English at St. Dominic's Government School. She wasn't famous, she wasn't wealthy, she didn't even have a working fan in her one-room apartment, but she loved to teach. It was the one thing that made her feel alive, and every morning she noticed a girl in the last row, thin, quiet, always alone. Her name was Adobe. She was 14. Chioma saw the signs. Same uniform every day, worn-out sandals, no lunch. She never raised her hand, never spoke unless asked. So one Friday after class, Chioma quietly slipped 500 naira into a white envelope, wrote, "For lunch, keep shining," and tucked it into Adobe's notebook. She did it again the next week, and again, every Friday, 500 nairas in a small envelope. No signature, no question, just kindness. Chioma's salary was often late, sometimes 2 months behind, but she always found a way to give something: bread, biscuits, little notes. Adobe didn't say much, but she started to smile more. She raised her hand in class. She started writing better essays. She was changing. Chioma never asked about her life. She just watched the light come back. One rainy evening, Chioma sat at her table staring at the last white envelope she owned. Her gas cylinder was empty. Rent was overdue. Her younger brother had just called from the village. "Mama, no day too strong again," he said. Chioma opened her wallet. 3,200 naira. That was all she had left for the month. She looked at the envelope, then the money. She sat in silence for a long time until a single tear dropped onto the table. She didn't cry loudly, just sat there, wiping quietly with the edge of her scarf. In the morning, she still gave Adobe her notebook, but no envelope inside. Adobe didn't complain, she just smiled. "Thank you, Miss Chioma." Chioma blinked. "For what?" Adobe's eyes sparkled. "For believing in me." Chioma smiled weakly. She didn't know it then, but something in her had just planted a seed. Now, back in the hospital, years later, Adobe stepped forward. Her name tag read, Dr. Adobe Okonkwo. She looked into Chioma's eyes. "I'll handle everything," she said. "Please, sit down. Your mother will be fine." Chioma was too stunned to speak. Her mouth moved, but no words came out. Adobe turned to the nurse. "Admit her immediately. I'm covering the deposit." The nurse raised an eyebrow but nodded. Chioma watched them wheel her mother away. Adobe placed a hand gently on Chioma's shoulder. "You don't remember me?" Chioma blinked again like she was waking from a dream. You're... Adobe smiled. "Yes, Ma, it's me." Chioma covered her mouth with both hands as tears rushed down. Later that evening, Chioma sat beside her mother's bed. She was stable now, sleeping. Adobe returned with a steaming cup of tea and sat beside her. "I used to hate tea," she said with a laugh, "but you always gave me 500 naira. That's how I started buying lunch, meat pie and Lipton." Chioma chuckled through her tears. "I thought you'd never know it was me." "I always knew," Adobe said, "but I didn't want to embarrass you. I just kept every envelope." She reached into her coat and pulled out a folded, slightly wrinkled envelope. It was one of the originals. Chioma took it in her hands and held it to her chest. 2 days later, Adobe walked into the ward with a small brown box. Chioma sat beside her sleeping mother, holding her hand. Adobe sat down quietly and opened the box. Inside were 6 old white envelopes. Some were torn at the edges, others still neat. Each one had the same handwriting. The same note: "For lunch, keep shining." "I kept them," Adobe said softly. "Every single one you gave me." Chioma looked at the envelopes and then at Adobe, now a doctor, graceful, confident, and giving. "Why?" Chioma asked. "Because they were more than lunch," Adobe said. "They were love. You fed me when I had no one. When you gave me that envelope, you gave me a reason to keep going." Chioma shook her head slowly. "I was just trying to help," she said. Adobe smiled. "Exactly. That's what makes it beautiful." She pulled out one last envelope, this one new, clean, with Chioma's name written on it. Chioma hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a letter. "Dear Miss Chioma, you once gave me hope. Now let me return the favor. I have enrolled your mother in our senior care program. I've also paid for her medication for the next 6 months. You gave me envelopes of kindness. This is my turn to give one back. With all my heart, Dr. Adaobi Okonkwo." Chioma covered her mouth, overwhelmed. I don't deserve this," she whispered. Adaobi held her hand. "You gave without expecting anything. That's what makes you a blessing." Weeks passed. Mama recovered well. Chioma returned to the same classroom. Same broken chairs. Same dusty board. But something had changed. She stood taller, spoke softer, looked at each child with more hope, and in the last row sat another quiet girl, just like Adaobi once was, thin, shy, always watching. Chioma didn't say anything, just slipped 500 eures into a white envelope, wrote, "For lunch, keep shining," and placed it in her notebook. The girl blinked up at her, surprised. Chioma smiled. "Eat well, learn well." Chioma never became rich. She never bought a car. She never left the country. But she changed a life, and that life went on to change another. Because kindness travels farther than money ever could, one white envelope at a time.